This episode is proudly supported by Fine Food Australia. Fine Food Australia, the country's leading trade event for the food service and hospitality industry, is back in Melbourne. Taking place the 31st of August to the 3rd of September at Melbourne Convention and Exhibition Centre, Melbourne. For over 40 years, Fine Food Australia has been the ultimate destination for chefs, restaurateurs, cafe owners, food retailers, and distributors alike, with over 900 exhibitors across 10 product categories, featuring both local and global brands. Fine Food Australia is where you'll find what's new, what's next, and what's driving the food industry forward. Make sure you register online before the 31st of August to secure free trade entry, so you don't have to pay $45 at the door. For more information, go to finefoodaustralia.com.au.
Being around it together around a fire, that's been something since the dawn of time, and being a place that can nurture that connection for people is probably why restaurants matter and why restaurants exist more so than anything.
Hey everybody, this is Dani Valent and you're listening to Dirty Linen. Whether it is your first time or perhaps your 1000th time, because I think we have clocked over 1,000 podcasts, I am super happy to have you with me. I'm always happy to get into an audio room and chat about food. My obsession. I think I've been talking a lot recently about how much I truly love restaurants and value the hard work, creativity, endeavour and commitment that goes into them. It always feels to me like such an amazing transaction that you can enter, walk through a door into a space that people have created, crafted, simply for the enjoyment of gathering together around food and drink. What a privilege. I really, truly feel it in my heart. Today, we are talking to someone who's been working in restaurants for a couple of decades, and I've been wanting to get him on the show for ages. I first came across Josh Bosen when he was cooking at Smith & Daughters in Melbourne. We've recently had Shannon Martinez on the podcast, a return guest, talking about her latest plant-based adventure at Smith & Daughters and Smith & Deli. When Josh was the head chef at Smith & Daughters, it received a hat in the Good Food Guide, which I think was the first time a vegan restaurant had been such anointed. He is now the chef de cuisine at One Hotels in Melbourne and the flagship restaurant From Here by Mike. Josh, long intro. I'm almost out of breath. Welcome to Dirty Linen.
Thank you so much for having me. Absolute pleasure.
Well, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. We've been chatting about it even before One Hotel opened in Melbourne. And I think at that point, I was so interested in the way that you talked about being there for the build of such a big enterprise. 1 year after From Here by Mike has opened, and One Hotel is certainly part of the city's fabric on the banks of the Yarra River in Docklands in Melbourne. How is it all going?
It's been a roller coaster to say the least. As you said, I came on board during pre-opening. It was the first time for me joining a hotel. It was really exciting. I mean, I've always seen hotels, hotel chefs as, the big tall white hats and, they're cooking behind buffets, all that sort of stuff. But this, when I got headhunted for this out of the blue, it really resonated with me about a different direction that hotels are going for restaurants. And, a year on at From Here by Mike, the team is so well established. And during the pre-opening, I really got to, drive finding a team for us and really got to pick out people who I wanted to work with. And I took a long while in picking out the team that I wanted to work with. And, even to this day, we've maintained, 96% of our chefs that we brought on board, which is, to be honest, I think that's pretty unheard of for a pre-opening and post-opening for kitchens. And, we set ourselves some ambitious visions, which was, we want to provide this really different style of cookery for hotel restaurants, and it was to be rooted in nature and hyper local produce and All these things that hotel restaurants weren't known for. And that was our driving force behind it all. It's been really, really good fun, and we've been thrilled with the reception, and like the consistency is really strong. All the guests are loving it, and we're getting really great feedback from all the local community about the restaurant and the hotel, and it's just been wonderful to hear.
Josh, it's interesting that you were headhunted for this role. What do you think they saw in you and hoped that you would be able to bring to the operation?
Well, I mean, when I got headhunted, I was at Smith & Daughters, and over there I was doing something very different. It was all plant-based. I myself, I wasn't vegan or anything like that, but I really wanted to learn how to take vegetables and plant cookery to the next level. All too often it's always put to the side, or it's a garnish or something else for the menu. It's always a second thought, rather than driving vegetables to be at the forefront and working on seasonality very heavily with that. I think that my approach to food is what drove them to find me. And what we're trying to do there was create something brand new at Smith & Daughters. And then, we got a hat, which was really cool. So the first plant-based hat restaurant in Victoria, maybe in Australia, I can't remember. But that really set the tone of what my direction was going to be with food. I really wanted to try and keep it veg-focused and producer-focused. And, I feel like the term farm to table is so overused now. Especially here in Victoria. It's less about farm to table. It's more about just talking and listening to the producers or the purveyors and seeing what's coming through. And then I'll tend to pick out an ingredient or a vegetable and try and work a dish around that. And I think that's why they headhunted me. I was just looking at it from a different lens.
So interesting. And I mean, from Here by Mike and the offering at one hotel overall, it's not plant-based. There's meat on the menu, and some beautiful dairy and some lovely eggs, and it's omnivorous for sure. What was it like for you to go back into using a broader palette of ingredients?
I think for me it was fairly easy. I mean, like I said, I was never vegan while I was working at Smith & Daughters, but it taught me a lot of things in how to utilize vegetables in a different way. But being able to then transfer those skills to a more standard menu actually helps me in developing it with Chef Mike in the way that we're trying to portray it now to the general public. For me, I think the biggest one was probably getting used to dairy again, in how it cooks and how it reacts and everything like that. But I mean, it takes 2 seconds to get back into it. But being able to then work with all these local producers of dairy and eggs and everything like that, it's really cool. For instance, we only get our eggs from Honest Eggs. Roger at Honest Eggs is one of the best people I know for producer. They're championing the egg farming properly, and the way that they grow and develop not just their eggs and their chickens and their farms, but like the produce as a whole. It really speaks volumes of how we need to then be treating the produce and how we need to educate the general public on where we're trying to take that vision. You wouldn't see a hotel using these beautiful eggs very often, and we use it for everything: breakfast, lunch, dinner, pastries.
Yeah, that is an incredible commitment, and I love Honest Eggs as well. Just a beautiful product, and as I even think about eggs, I just think about bird flu and just really hope that they are not impacted. It's such a worrying time in that sense. Yeah, Josh, so you mentioned Mike. So Mike McEnearny, who's, I suppose, the figurehead of the From Here by Mike flagship restaurant. And if I went back to find the podcast I did with Mike McEnearny on Dirty Linen, I reckon it was in some kind of lockdown. So I'd have to dig right back into the archives to find it. But I'll do that and put a link in the show notes. But Mike is always such a passionate advocate for knowing where your food comes from. When I wrote about the restaurant and spoke to him about the sustainability initiatives at the hotel, I was so cynical, honestly. It's like whenever you hear about a massive business and sustainability, you just think, well, let's bring on the greenwashing. But it sounded pretty compelling the way he spoke about it. Can you talk about some of the sustainability initiatives at the property?
Of course. I mean, I was in the same vein when I, first thought of joining the company. I was like, it's just another big company that they're going to greenwash, and they're not really going to follow through. But the more and more I read into One Hotels and what they do, the more and more I believed in it. They're not like all these companies saying, we're going to be carbon neutral by 2040 or whatever it may be. The things that they're doing is already in place. They're not loud about what they're doing. They're just doing it. At every property we have waste diversion. So just as every other property has it, we have it here in Melbourne. So we have all of our waste streams, general waste, commingle, organics and compostables, glass, e-waste, everything. And every month we're measured on our waste diversion from landfill. So our overall goal as a business is to divert 80 to 85%. My personal goal for the kitchen is to divert about 90% of waste, and we're hitting those milestones every month, which is really good to see. And that just proves that a company this big can do that. But we're not putting it on the billboard going, hey, look at us, we're doing this. It's just that something that we're just doing. Other initiatives is that we're trying to work with local growers to see if we can't use second life produce. So anything that's going lost or going out, hey, let's try and get that bulk produce and use it up before it goes to wastage. We're trying to always do whole fish where we can, and if we're breaking down kingfish for sashimi, then we're keeping the wings and creating something like that. We're making broths and stocks so we can just give it away to guests. All the little things that kitchens should be doing for food waste. That's what we're trying to put in place, and that we have put in place from day one. We want to make sure that we can divert as much as we can from landfill is very important. I mean, just seeing the amount of waste that goes into people's bins is just ridiculous nowadays.
What are some of the things that you're doing that you think other restaurant kitchens, or home kitchens for that matter, could take on board? Just like little things where it's just, I guess, changing a mindset or looking at something as perhaps a future ingredient rather than something to put in the compost or the bin.
Well, actually, one of the wonderful things one of my chefs did recently was all of the green tops that we had from strawberries during strawberry season, turned it into a shrub, and then fermented that, and then reduced into a syrup. And then that syrup is then ultimately going to be used for an event next month in our crane bar. So it's all these little things like just giving the chefs the power to go and say, okay, no, let me keep this, what would otherwise be considered trash or landfill, and turn it into something new. Another one is that we've kept all the offcuts of like plums and plum seeds and stuff like that from stone fruits and created like a chung, reduce it down, turn it into a syrup. I used it for one of the events that we had last week with non-wines. So I used that with a dessert. That had something that we had on hand for a little bit, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to use it for. So, there's a lot of ways that we can either ferment or preserve or otherwise turn into something else rather than it going into the bin. It's just, for the most part, it's about just trying it and seeing if it works. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, at least at least you've tried. At least you can turn around and say, hey, I tried to do something rather than going, no, I just threw it in the bin.
Well, I guess even, for other chefs to see that those things are being tried, they're just going to have a different mindset. And, whether it's something that they use in your kitchen or in other kitchens that they end up working in, it's all about, I guess, just changing attitudes around some of these things. And I'd have to say, like, the Crane Bar there changed my attitude to espresso martinis to some degree. I got to say, I'm not really an espresso martini drinker. I like to keep my coffee and my alcohol at opposite ends of the day. But I was very curious on the menu there where I saw that the espresso martini was made with coffee that was collected from running the coffee machine in the morning. And I just thought, well, that's so cool. That's just a waste product in most places where, you have to dial in the coffee and make a few brews that might not be perfect. And then, you just chuck it down the sink. But to collect those and then use it in an espresso martini, which, to my perhaps untrained palate was a very good espresso martini, I thought was very cool. And it just makes you think about all the little and big things that we could be doing differently that would, just make a little bit of a difference.
Exactly. And, that mindset extends not just from my chefs, but, as you said, you've experienced it at the Crane Bar, and that extends to the managers and the bartenders that work there. They're all brilliant. The bar manager is incredibly knowledgeable and always coming going, hey, can I try this? Can I try this? Hey, I want to do this. Sure, let's do it. If you don't know, you don't try. It's about trying to just, like you said, move the mindset and give people the tools to do it and try it out.
Josh, I'd love to talk about, the restaurant as a bit of an ambassador for the city. I'm sure at Smith and Daughters you had a lot of people travelling to eat there. It's such a renowned business and, people are really, I guess, tapped into being vegans. They'll travel and, share with their communities about a great vegan restaurant that they found. So I'm sure, you were on the front foot with being the very best of Melbourne for those people, but it's at another level in a city where people are actually staying with you and, spending weekends or, swathes time, including very important occasions, no doubt. What's it like sort of being part of those occasions for people?
I mean, it's quite interesting. At the end of the day, we are a restaurant that happens to be inside a hotel. We are part of the hotel. But at the same time, we want to be able to remove that thought process that people have about restaurants that are in a hotel, in that they have everything and they can do everything, and they, if you want X, Y, Z, sure, no problem, we'll get that cooked. It's trying to educate our guests about what we're trying to do is trying to give them something different that they wouldn't otherwise see in a hotel restaurant, and then being able to see all these different facets of what people are expecting when they come through is very interesting. Obviously in hotels, especially in Australia, a lot of it is business people coming through. And only during, leisure periods of the year would you get all those leisure people, during Christmas and New Year and all that sort of stuff. But for the most part, it is a lot of business driven. So there's expectations around the business side of things where people expect to go, okay, I'm coming down to the restaurant for lunch. I want to have a quick meal because I got to go back to my meetings and whatnot. And, we very much get that done for them, but we're trying to then also show them that we can do it in a different manner than you'd say like a standardized restaurant that's inside a hotel, that has buffets and all that sort of stuff. An example of that is that we don't do buffet service for breakfast. We do full a la carte, and the a la carte menu is driven the same way as the lunch and dinner menu. It's driven produce first and what's in season, and we're trying to just do our very best to nourish people and give them a really good meal for the day that's going to, power them through, let them do their meetings and have fun, and then also show them that, you can have delicious food inside a hotel. That's what we're trying to do.
I know that, a major focus from Here by Mike is that it's Victorian produce. Tell me about that. What is different from the way that you source produce? As you said earlier, farm to plate is a bit of an overused term. It gets stripped of its meaning. How do you bring the meaning back?
It's very hard, but getting to work with some special suppliers and producers helps that fact. I bought quite a few suppliers across from Smith and Daughters when I moved over, and then other suppliers that I've worked with in the past. Natura being one of the biggest. Natura are brilliant. They're a purveyor that works with local farmers very, very closely, and they're able to grow things that other growers wouldn't normally, just because they're like, oh no, I want to grow this because it's really cool. I may not be able to grow heaps of it, but at least I can get this onto a plate in a restaurant and show people it's something different. I was reading an article that sugarloaf cabbage is having its, big renaissance period now. Everyone's so used to white cabbage and round cabbage and whatnot, and all of a sudden sugarloaf cabbage is the big one that's on everyone's menus because farmers are finally starting to grow it en masse, which is really, really good because it's such a versatile ingredient that you can do so much with it. It's got so much sugar and starch and everything else in it that it caramelizes up beautifully, and you can manipulate it in ways that you wouldn't be able to with normal cabbages. And it's like that connection that the purveyors have with the farmers. That's what drives my vision for trying to create something different for the restaurant. The same goes for, say, Flinders and Co. I love what they do. I've tried to get meat like beef and whatnot from them. That they're beef producers that I really want to work with, not because not just because they're a big name, but because of how they grow the beef or the sustainability factors, or most importantly, how it tastes. Too often on menus, it's just Wagyu, Wagyu, Wagyu. And Wagyu is more of I'd say, just a label nowadays, less about what the beef actually is. One of the best producers at the moment that I'm working with is, they're not here in Victoria, but they're in New South Wales, is Robert McKenzie from Macca's Beef. They're bringing back Black Angus like it used to be 20 odd years ago. Their cattle's being grown and fed and whatnot in a way that the beef tastes like beef. It tastes like a good steak. Too often nowadays you just get this just butter and fat in your mouth, and you don't have true beef flavor. Another producer is Vintage Beef Co. They're brilliant. Beautiful yellow fat from grass fed and everything else. And we're trying to bring all that into the restaurant at an affordable price, so then you can show guests, hey, you can have this, not have to pay, out the wazoo for it, and still enjoy it.
Is it a hard sell? When you mentioned that you got a lot of these business customers, perhaps they just want, a steak frite that tastes like it tastes in Singapore and Dallas and, Leon, I don't know, wherever they've had their other meetings. And maybe they just want their Caesar salad, which is what they just imagined that they were going to have when they came down, for lunch with a client. Is it a hard sell to do things differently?
It is in some ways. I think being a year and a bit now on, we've sort of found our footing in the space, and people are accepting it. It was a hard drive to try and get that through the door when we first opened. We can stand on the top of a hill and scream, hey, we're doing Victorian produce, we're doing this, we're doing that. But so is everyone else in Victoria. How do we differentiate ourselves from that? I think the way that we did that best was that we picked a path from day one. Myself and Chef Mike, we aligned very closely in the way that we designed the menu and wanted to work with the producers. And we stuck with that path, and then we're able to firstly educate our team members who are probably the most important people on the floor, because they're the ones who are going to educate the guest and be able to guide them in the way that they're going to be fed in the restaurant. Giving them the power to do that, and give them all the information to guide the guests. That, I think, is what broke down those common walls and expectations that people have with hotels, and created something like a new division for us. So created a new path in leading guests down a new journey for them. And it's worked very well for us. We have all these repeat guests coming through. We've got repeat business clients staying with us just because they love the hotel and they love the food, and they want to show it to everyone else, and it's been really good.
I have to say, I love the staff on the floor there. I've been a couple of times. You're probably at one end of the first year and the other end, and some of them seemed very green, but they seemed very much brought into the narrative of the restaurant and really keen to share what they'd been taught to guests. And I just thought it was super charming. Obviously, there was other experienced people on the floor that, perhaps had a level of polish as well as the knowledge. But I reckon my favourite staff members that I've encountered at From Here by Mike are the ones that, maybe it was their first hospo job, or they were fresh out of culinary or, hospitality school. They just... they had a story and they wanted to share it. And I thought it was, extremely winning.
Yeah, and you're right. We're not, our ethos when it comes to hiring staff is not that we're not going to go hire someone who has all the skills. Yes, you can, but ultimately what we want to do is we want to hire people who are passionate. They're passionate about what they want to do. They're passionate about the work, and they're passionate about the place that they're choosing to work at. That's what's more important, because, as managers and head chef and whatever it may be, that's our job to train them on the skills. If they bring the passion and the true interest and, that energy that they have to the floor, if they bring that already themselves, then that's 99% of the work done. You can go to other places and they can be fully trained, but people can be dry and uninteresting. But if you have someone who's charismatic and catches you straight at the door, then you've got the guest for the whole time that they're there.
Josh, did you have someone like that in your early career? Like who or what locked you into life as a chef?
Well, I mean, the person that locked me into life as a chef is my father. He was the one that pushed me to get an apprenticeship and a job as a cook. He saw that I had that passion and that I wanted to do it, but I needed that little push to do so. And it was in Sydney when I got my first job as an apprentice. Worked for a little place called Cafe Del Mar in Cronulla, and I learned so much from the owners there. The two Pauls, they were incredible and amazing, and they took their time to teach me everything that I needed to know to be a chef. Then I went onwards from there into other restaurants. I worked at Iceberg's Dining Room as well for a number of years, then moved to Melbourne, worked at Smith & Daughters, learned so much there, learned about management at Iceberg's when I first became sous chef there as well, learning under multiple head chefs there, Monty Kludevic and Ben Horn, incredible. And then, finally coming and working at From Here by Mike and being able to work side by side with Chef Mike is also incredible. He's a brilliant mentor as well. And we share the common vision about where we want the food to go, and that also makes the work enjoyable. But it also makes it, I don't want to use the word easy, but it does. It makes the work easy because we're on the same page and we have that same vision that we want to take it towards.
Often parents trying to keep their kids out of hospitality. So tell me a bit more about your family and why your dad was so keen for you to take the leap.
I mean, besides myself, the only other person in hospitality is my younger brother, but he works front of house. So we worked together when we were at Smith & Daughters. Then we sort of petered off into different areas after that. But other than that, no one else has worked hospitality. And it was purely, the reason why I got into it was purely because just I loved cooking. I always have loved cooking. I was always in the kitchen cooking around and doing all sorts of stuff. And Dad was the one that gave me the nudge to go, no, you this is what you need to do. Follow your dream and make it happen. I think far too often nowadays, it's probably more so nowadays than ever, is people aren't working the jobs that they love. They're just doing work. If you don't love something, then what's the point in doing it? I wouldn't be a chef if I didn't love it. Not just the cooking, but also the mentoring and the training and seeing that next generation of chefs coming through the industry. But I think the biggest thing for me is when I can see a guest truly enjoying a piece of food that the kitchen made, and then you see that smile on the reaction on their face, and that's what makes me smile. That's the best thing ever. I don't think I'll ever stop cooking. I love it. Yeah.
Do you feel connected to a guest in that moment? And I mean, because I've seen you in the kitchen, you're very busy. There's a lot going on. Like, just tell me about, just those moments. Why do they mean so much to you, and how do you sort of grasp them?
I think it is interesting, especially during a busy service. It's usually like head down, concentrating on the work, and it's just plate after plate after plate after plate. But ever so often, you do see one of those moments in the dining room where you can see a guest genuinely enjoying something for the very first time, and it may sound corny, but it's sort of like that the time slows down sort of thing, and you can see it, and you can see that reaction, and then you just think to yourself, you're like, that's nice. It's nice to see. And then that makes it all worth it. All the hours you pull and the intense services that chefs go through and everything else. But that's why we do it. Hopefully, I hope that's why everyone is in the industry, is because they love what they do. I tell all my chefs, I say that don't do it unless you love it.
Do you see? I mean, you must see people go through those sort of emotional peaks and troughs with their early careers. Like, I mean, how do you tell the difference between it just being a hard service and being, the wrong path for you?
It's very tricky nowadays. But like I said, I got to pick out my team from day one during pre-opening. And this is before we were even hiring, before we couldn't even trial people on knife skills. So it was all done. It was all virtual interviews, and I had some come in and talk to them. And it took the time. I took the time to sit and chat with them and understand them as people, and understand that what they want to do is be a chef and cook. That's their interest. It's a bit of a hard one when you see it. Sometimes you see those hard services, but at the end of the day, when you see everyone pull through together and they're all smiling and having a laugh afterwards, then you've done the right thing, and you know that you've picked the right team. Without the team, I wouldn't be able to do it myself. It's impossible. And I can say that with confidence because at the moment I'm not there in the kitchen and it's running perfectly.
Are you worried about them, or you reckon they've got it?
No, not at all. They've got it 100%. There was times back in other restaurants where I would have my day off, and I'd be worried about everything. I'd be checking my phone. I'd be this or that, checking with them. You guys all right? This, that, and the other. I don't have to do that here, because I feel I picked the right people to work with me, and then train them to lead the kitchen without me being there. And to me, it's really great. Yes, I'm very much one of those people who constantly thinks about work, but not in a bad way. It's just that I'm always thinking about either the next dish or the next thing that I want to do for work, or what am I going to put on specials for the weekend? I'm always thinking about work, but that's because I love it.
I love this idea of interviewing people and not looking at their knife skills or not getting them to make a dish or a sauce or, whatever it is. It's quite I don't know, it's a different discipline, isn't it? But it sounds like it's really paid off in terms of that low staff turnover and really understanding them as people, and it must make it easier to coach them through some of the tricky bits.
Yeah, it really is. But it's also just having those people be willing to want to learn as well. Training up the sous chefs who are in charge now, and then they're then passing on that knowledge to the CDPs and the commies as well. Seeing that happen in real time is really wonderful. And it shows that, again, that we picked the right people for the right job. And we're ultimately training the new chefs for the next generation. Otherwise, we're not going to have any chefs. It'll all just be they'll all be cooking with those robotic wok things, the ones that spin around. It'll be a bit weird, won't it?
Yes, I know. They're always threatening to be the next big thing, but hopefully we'll have many live humans in kitchens for generations to come. Josh, you mentioned you're always thinking about work, so I know you must be thinking about spring. It feels like the seasons are turning. What are you excited about when it comes to spring produce and dishes?
I mean, it's going to be an interesting one because, we've had, this winter's been pretty wet. So there's been a lot of stuff that's been stopped abruptly or it just hasn't happened. And then, we've got El Nino coming through. So there's a very high chance of having the bushfires happening again, which is a very worrying factor for summertime. But hopefully looking to spring, we're going to have some beautiful stuff coming through. One of the things I really want to get onto the menu for spring is wild venison. And it's something I've been playing around with for a bit now. And I personally eat a lot of wild venison, and I get it through the company that Joe Barrett started. And then we're hopefully going to be getting the produce from them as well. But I want to try and drive more. And then, this talks back to sustainability. It's about, getting venison to be one of the dishes. It's working through sustainability via invasive species and trying to educate the guests about eating the problem. Not just venison, but wild boar as well. And venison's stunning for a meat. It's so versatile. It's so healthy. It's got everything you need. And I think it'd be a really wonderful addition to the menu because we can say that these were wild hunted in Victoria, which they are. And, we're trying to solve two problems in one go with it as well. And, I think a lot of the, wild games and all that sort of stuff are starting to get their mark on the map with restaurants. So it'll be very exciting to see if we can get that going.
That's super exciting. So yeah, Joe Barrett's part of Discovered Wild Foods, which licensed hunters go out and shoot venison or deer that are running wild in agriculture and bushland and really damaging the environment, and also making it harder to farm. So whether you're about protecting nature or protecting agriculture, fewer deer out there would be a very good thing, and they are actually so delicious. So, and I think people still see it as in Australia as can be a bit of a hard sell. I know that Joe Barrett down at Surf Hotel in Torquay is doing a venison schnitzel because it's a really easy way in, like who won't eat a schnitzel? Or with her wild boar dim sims, it's like, well, anyone will eat a dim sim, put it in a dumpling and, you'll go for it. So there are, I suppose, some easy on-ramps to some of these proteins. But, whatever it is that gets people eating it and, thinking of it as a normal food source, the better. And if you can find out a way to get wild rabbit on the menu, then I'll be there.
Or maybe wild rabbit will be on the menu then. I have to say I haven't cooked with wild rabbit in many years, but it is very delicious.
It's very delicious, but I think commercially it's very tricky to source. But
it is very tricky.
Yeah, but it would be great if it wasn't. Josh, let's just finish up with a big question that I love to ask people. Why do you think restaurants matter?
That's always a tricky question, isn't it? I think for me, why restaurants matter, it's it's sort of like a gateway into, this place where people get to share and grow and make connections, over something that humans have been sort of doing since the dawn of time, cooking meals and being around it together around a fire. That's been something since the dawn of time, and being a place that can nurture that connection for people is probably why restaurants matter and why restaurants exist more so than anything. But it also gives it an opportunity for chefs who are truly passionate about their craft to showcase something that they believe in as well. It's sort of like it's a two-pronged street coming into one for me. From both ends. I think it matters on both sides for the guest and for the chef as well.
Yeah, beautifully said. It's like, I guess if we're gathered around the fire, there's it's a circle, isn't it? It's not people's sitting on one side or the other. We can gather at any point, any spoke on that wheel. Love that, Josh. Looking forward to my next meal from Here by Mike. And definitely if there's venison on the menu, I'll be ordering it. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. Really great to finally get you on Dirty Linen.
Thank you so much. It was an absolute pleasure.
This is Dirty Linen. I'm Dani Valent. We bring you untold stories from the food world. Real, raw, unafraid, hopeful. We're driven by a belief that food provides endless opportunities for learning, connecting, and creating the world we want to live in. Delicious, open-hearted, meaningful. If you know a story that needs telling, get in touch. Write to dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au. Thank you for listening.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.